The World Meteorological Organization issued an urgent warning about the potential for a strong El Nino event over the Pacific Ocean, expected to happen later in the year. Here's a little of what the Secretary General had to say.
More heat-related illness, wider spread of vector-borne diseases, increased pressure on food and water systems, and communities that were already struggling will be pushed further beyond their limits.
It's a pretty sobering prediction, isn't it? But what might it mean for us here in Australia? Let's talk to Mandy Freund, who is a lecturer in climate science at the University of Melbourne. Mandy, good morning to you. Talk us through what is actually happening that indicates that there is going to be this powerful El Nino.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think with the WMO, so the World Meteorological Organization, tipping the odds to 90% of El Nino event persisting until the end of the year. That's quite crucial because it is exactly what the models have predicted so far. And that's what we observe. So we see that the Eastern Pacific, so far away from Australia, is already warming by about 2 degrees. But what we can also see is that the subsurface, so the temperatures below the surface in the ocean, are showing heat that is warmer than 6 degrees, which is intense. So you can see that people are getting a bit worried how powerful this El Nino event might be.
Why is it happening?
So El Nino is a pretty normal thing to happen. It happened for the centuries in the past. And this year is quite unusual because we have had some precursors that we saw quite early on. So El Nino is the warming in the tropical Pacific, which is so intense because the tropical Pacific is huge, that lots of weather systems and climate around the world are impacted by this.
What might we see specifically here in Australia?
Yeah, that's a good question. I hope we will not too much affected, but El Nino in the past has usually tipped the odds to drier and warmer conditions, and I guess that's what is predicted for the coming season. But at the moment, Australia shouldn't panic around droughts or anything, because if we look at the past for El Nino events, it usually meant, okay, it might be a bit drier, but the intensity of an El Nino doesn't really tell us if we are going to experience more drought or more average conditions.
What's done then, Mandy, in terms of decision-making, planning, preparedness when an El Nino is declared?
Yeah, so countries usually around the world need to prepare and have plan Bs for the case what's going to happen. But in Australia, I guess it's quite unusual to know what's actually happening. So El Nino is often a state that we know it's a condition, but it's not really a good rainfall predictor. So we need to be prepared for what's coming, but not so much an extreme drought per se. But that being said, I think we need to just be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and there's lots of talk, and we heard from the society there about the implications it could have on food supplies because of how it will affect a broader section of Asia.
Yeah, that's what we've seen in the past quite often. So El Nino usually causes quite a lot of disruption to the food system. Lots of countries, especially the Americas, often see heavier rain and flooding events, which has quite a big impact on the cropping. But here more in Australia and Southeast Asia, we see more dry conditions, which has often an impact on commodities like rice, for example. All that being said, it's hard to predict what's going to happen.
How long might it last, Mandy, if indeed it does turn into an El Nino?
Yeah, El Ninos usually last about 9 to 12 months. So I think the El Nino is pretty much to sit here until the end of summer.
Wow, incredible. And of course, we've just come into winter. There are mild temperatures. The snow season starts this weekend. There is some snow, but could events like this prove to be a big dampener on a ski season?
Oh, I hope not, sorry. So El Nino kind of sets us up for dry and probably warmer conditions on average. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that's average. So if we get a, intense cold front coming through, at the right time, I think that could save us.